Bill Walton dropped a triple-double on drugs. The theory's wild, but fans keep it alive for a reason. Bill Walton wasn't just a dominant big man, he was also deep into the psychedelic scene. He loved the Grateful Dead, openly talked about using LSD and mushrooms, and had a personality that made it easy for people to connect those dots. That combo, elite on-court skill and off-court mind expansion, is the perfect fuel for this kind of myth. Now here's where it picks up speed. People point to May of 1980, the same time Mount St. Helens erupted, and they swear Walton was out there on the court, tripping and still managing to drop a triple-double. Never mind that there's no official stat line from that month showing it, he had already posted 2 legit triple-doubles back in the 1977 to 78 season. So the argument is, if he could do it then, and he was using psychedelics back then, why not during one of those games? And let's not forget his quotes. Stuff like being milked while talking about LSD. Yeah, not exactly subtle. That's how fans twist his words into possible confession. Add in the drama of a literal volcanic eruption, and it's like the universe handed people a myth on a silver platter. Whether it was in Portland or Los Angeles, those 3 elements, his drug use, his stat lines, and the wild timing, keep this theory rolling. It's part legend, part box score, and all classic NBA weirdness. Aubrey McClendon's crash was a cover-up. The theory kicks off with the way he died, crashing head-on into a wall at high speed with no skid marks, no swerve, and no brake use. The police even said he had time to avoid it, but he didn't. That's all fans needed to start piecing something bigger together. And the timing? He died less than 1 day after being indicted for federal bid rigging charges. That part's what fuels everything else. He wasn't just a Thunder stakeholder. He held nearly 1/5 of the team and played a part in the messy Seattle to Oklahoma City move. Fans believe he was in a position to expose a lot, maybe even details tied to NBA finances. Then there's the fracking empire. He built billion-dollar deals across oil and gas networks, with enough secrets to make even Wall Street nervous. This theory claims there were too many reasons to shut him up, whether it was NBA ownership, energy elites, or both. Some think they needed him gone before he said too much. His death was staged, they say, to look like a freak accident. One person, no survivor, instant fire, no evidence left behind. The part that sticks, the quiet. After the crash, the investigation didn't dominate headlines. There weren't deep dives, no alternate autopsies, nothing. Just a quick label, accident, and it disappeared. Social media jumped on the theory right away. Even the ID process raised eyebrows since it had to be done with dental records after the car burned. People who believe this theory don't think it's just random. The indictment timing, the silence, and the type of crash all come together into one explosive claim. Someone made sure Aubrey McClendon never talked again. David Stern rigged Shaq's draft for sunshine. According to Shaq, back in March of 1992, he had a private conversation with David Stern where the commissioner casually asked if he'd rather play somewhere hot or somewhere cold. Shaq says he went with hot, and just days later, the draft lottery results placed Orlando, one of the league's warmest markets, with the #1 pick. The theory blew up from there. Fans jumped on the timing. Shaq's chat with Stern happened months before the lottery, and when Orlando landed the top spot, it raised a lot of eyebrows. The Magic didn't have the best odds, yet they landed the prize. People love pointing out how convenient that looks. After Stern got an answer straight from the league's biggest prospect, Shaq has never straight up called it a conspiracy, but he's dropped enough breadcrumbs to keep the story alive. He said the timing was interesting, and his tone in interviews has kept the door wide open. Add that to the fact that Stern was known for carefully managing the league's image, and the whole hot or cold moment starts to feel like something more. Some fans claim Shaq's story matched perfectly with the results. Others called it nonsense. But the part that fuels the fire is the vibe of that meeting. Stern didn't ask where he wanted to be drafted, just what kind of weather he liked, and that somehow lined up with the Magic jumping into first. In the bigger picture, this theory fits neatly into the pile of NBA lottery suspicions: Orlando, Cleveland, New Orleans, and now maybe Dallas. But this one's extra sticky because it came straight from Shaq's mouth. That's why people keep talking. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm gonna be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Blazers drafted Yang Hansen for China's wallet. This theory starts with numbers, big one. China's got hundreds of millions of NBA fans, and the league's been trying to capitalize on that for years. When Portland grabbed Yang Hansen at pick 16, plenty of fans and commentators didn't see just a player. They saw a direct link to a global bank account. Yang wasn't expected to go that high. Most mock drafts had him sliding into the late first or even second round. He wasn't even at the draft. So when Portland jumped to take him mid-round, people immediately suspected there was more at play. Add the fact that Yang is the first Chinese first-rounder since 2007. and the theory pretty much writes itself. Critics point to his limited athleticism and lower ceiling. Scouts liked his basketball IQ, but nobody was calling him a can't-miss prospect. That's where the marketing angle comes in. Jerseys, streams, buzz. It all multiplies when a Chinese player breaks through. Teams know that. The Yao Ming effect is still fresh in league memory. Fans flooded social media with jokes and memes about New Jersey sales and stream boosts. Some called the pick genius, others called it a billboard in a jersey. But the theory says this wasn't just a basketball decision, it was business. And the fact that Yang's pick shocked even analysts adds fuel to that fire. The team might say it was about fit and potential. The theory says it was about viewership and international branding. Either way, Portland instantly became more relevant to the world's biggest basketball market. And that's the kind of move that makes theories stick. LeBron James is on PEDs. This theory exploded when Chael Sonnen, never one to hold back, claimed LeBron uses EPO, the same performance enhancer that boosts red blood cells and cuts recovery time. Sonnen said it's the reason LeBron bounces back so fast. Then Victor Conti, the guy behind Balco, added more fuel, saying there's reason for suspicion, especially with names around LeBron linked to the Biogenesis clinic. And yeah, Biogenesis isn't just some random lab, it's the same place connected to major steroid scandals. Court documents tied LeBron's wife, trainer, and business associates to it. No direct proof he used anything, but the proximity alone sends theorists spiraling. Then there's Kevin Garnett tossing in a joke about that new juice on a podcast. People noticed. The other part that keeps this theory alive is his longevity. How's he still jumping out of the gym past 40? Fans point to that infamous pill clip during a game, with comments flooding in like, that's not vitamins, bro. Combine that with insider whispers from Rick Bucher, who said some NBA media and players suspect something's going on, and the theory stays in rotation. Forums go wild over this. People bring up the millions he spends on his body like it's some kind of cover. Some argue no one could last this long, at this level, without help. And the lack of failed tests, that just makes it more suspicious to them. So between the connections to Biogenesis, the public allegations, the mysterious on-court moment, and his ridiculous durability, the theory says LeBron's greatness might not be natural, it might be chemical. Spencer Dinwiddie versus Tony Brother. The theory kicks off during the game on November 4th, 2022. Dinwiddie gets hit with a technical, and later hears that ref Tony Brothers called him a bitch-ass mother. Not exactly referee etiquette. That moment went public fast, with Dinwiddie openly talking about it post-game. Then things got weird. Brothers didn't ref another Mavericks game after that, or a Nets game. He kept showing up for other matchups, but not anywhere near Dinwiddie. Sports Illustrated even said the NBA sidelined him for one game, though they didn't call it a suspension. And that silence? That's what fans latched onto. Fans noticed the sudden scheduling gap and started building a timeline. One post flat out said if Dinwiddie got Tony Brothers fired, he deserved a Hall of Fame spot. The theory argues this wasn't a coincidence. It was a quiet league move to avoid more heat. Dinwiddie brought the spotlight, and the league chose to quietly remove the problem without stirring up more headlines. This theory hinges on three things: the insult, the selective disappearance, and the league's refusal to explain anything. Brothers wasn't benched across the board. He just stopped working games involving the player he allegedly disrespected. That looks like damage control. People who believe the theory say Dinwiddie didn't just call out bad behavior, he changed the ref rotation. Not with fists, not with fines, but with pressure. And that pressure, the theory claims, got Tony Brothers benched from any court Dinwiddie stepped on. No official statements, no dramatic punishment, just quiet consequences, and a whole lot of speculation. Kawhi Leonard might be in Scientology. Someone said Kawhi might have joined Scientology by accident because he's too quiet. But what began as a punchline has morphed into a pretty detailed speculation. Fans point to his cold demeanor, his extreme privacy, and his perfectly controlled public image. All things often associated with high-level Scientology members. Let's start with his privacy. Kawhi's off the grid. No public social media, no interviews about his personal life, and barely any personality shown during press conferences. That level of silence has fans drawing lines between him and the tightly guarded lives of Scientologist celebrity. Then there's his public behavior. He barely emotes. Big win, stone face. Game winner, slight nod. Even when he's in commercials, his energy level sits somewhere between robotic and monk. Add that to how high-level Scientology training focuses on emotional discipline, public composure, and tight media control. And you start to see the outline. Fans have noticed how similar Kawhi seems to people like Tom Cruise. Not in beliefs, but in that polished, unreadable calm. They're saying he moves and talks like someone who's been trained to never give anything away. There's no hard proof, just a bunch of traits lining up too perfectly. The theory doesn't claim he's going to Sunday services at a celebrity center. It just says his vibe matches. Quiet, calculated, and deeply private. People think it's either Scientology or some secret monk code. Either way, Kawhi's whole energy has fans wondering what exactly he's hiding behind that perfectly still stare. Nike orchestrated the LeBron and KD moves. This theory says Nike didn't just sell sneakers. They moved superstars like chess pieces. It starts with Kevin Durant's shift to the Warriors in 2016. Some fans believe Nike wanted to boost Durant's legacy while also containing Steph Curry's growing power. By putting them on the same team, Curry couldn't stack rings solo. Durant wins titles, Nike wins control, and Curry's Under Armour hype hits a ceiling. Then came LeBron's move in 2018. Leaving Cleveland wasn't just about basketball, according to the theory, it was brand strategy. Nike allegedly steered him to Los Angeles, right into Hollywood spotlight. Movie deals, commercials, nonstop media coverage, it all snowballed from there. And in the background, Nike's global influence getting louder in the biggest West Coast market. Next stop, Durant again. In 2019, he went east to Brooklyn. The theory says Nike placed him there to lock down the New York market. While LeBron held down Los Angeles, Durant would dominate the East Coast headlines. 2 cities, 2 conferences, 2 Nike megastars. Suddenly, the league's biggest markets were controlled by athletes on Nike's payroll. This theory isn't about random team choices. It's about narrative control. Big names, big cities, big money. And it's not just merch. With Durant and LeBron on opposite coasts, Nike allegedly guaranteed constant media buzz, jersey sales, and full court dominance. No matter who won the title, fans buy into it because the timeline fits too perfectly. Durant to the Warriors, LeBron to the Lakers, Durant to the Nets. The moves always help Nike's visibility, not just the players' careers. It's not about free agency anymore, it's about empire building through sneakers. Seattle's lawsuit delayed the NBA's return. Back in September of 2007, Seattle sued Clay Bennett's ownership group to keep the Sonics from leaving Key Arena early. The lease ran through 2010, and the city wasn't about to let the team pack up without a fight. The lawsuit didn't stop a new team from coming. It was purely to enforce the lease. But what came out of that legal fight shaped everything that followed. By July of 2008, both sides agreed to a settlement. Bennett paid $45 million to get out early, and another $30 million was added to the deal if Seattle didn't get a new team by 2013. That clause was huge. It wasn't a promise the NBA would return, but it financially punished Bennett if they didn't. Seattle also got to keep the Sonics name, their championship history, trophies, and rights to a future team. The groundwork was laid, but there was one massive issue. Key Arena. It was outdated. The NBA wasn't going to send a team to a crumbling venue. So until the city completed renovations, expansion was off the table. So yeah, the lawsuit was important. It bought Seattle time, preserved their brand, and forced cash out of Bennett's hands. But it didn't stop the NBA. It just made sure Seattle didn't walk away empty-handed while they waited for the league to finally come back. The NBA broke up the Jailblazers to save its image. This theory says the NBA didn't just dislike the Blazers roster, they needed it dismantled. Between 2000 and 2003, Portland was stacked with talent and scandal. Rasheed Wallace racked up texts like they were rebounds. Bonzi Wells, Chintel Woods, and Zach Randolph brought headlines no franchise wants. Weed arrests, fights, even a dogfighting case. The media branded them the Jailblazers, and the label stuck. Attendance tanked, TV ratings dropped, fans got turned off by the chaos. The theory claims the NBA put pressure on owner Paul Allen to clean house, not just to improve the roster, but to protect the league's brand. Then came the weird trades. Brian Grant was swapped for a fading Shawn Kemp. A young Jermaine O'Neal was dealt for Dale Davis. Ruben Patterson, with a criminal record, was brought in during all this. None of it screamed basketball logic. It looked like chaos control disguised as roster management. By 2003, it got blatant. Bonzi, Rasheed, and Randolph were all shipped out. The front office announced a 25-point pledge, a straight-up PR campaign to fix the team's reputation. It didn't matter how good the players were, the team was being gutted for respectability. Fans noticed. They came up with theories about behavior trumping basketball, and with the Rose Garden going bankrupt, Allen had every reason to bend. The league couldn't afford one of its most talented teams being its biggest embarrassment. So the theory goes like this. The NBA didn't just want the Jailblazers gone, they needed them erased to protect sponsorships, rivalries, and national image. Winning games wasn't enough if you were losing face. NBA refs favor superstars by design. This theory says the whistles aren't random, they're rigged for the stars. Not in the black helicopter way, but in the data-backed, cold and calculated way. From LeBron to Durant to Giannis, big names get the benefit of the doubt in crunch time, and the numbers back it up. 538's breakdown of last 2-minute reports shows it clearly. In close games, Teams with superstars get fewer missed calls against them. Teams without them, more wrong calls, more silence from the refs. It's not just bad luck. Academic research shows refs give more foul calls to taller or more famous players, even when the contact's the same. Then there's the league's internal training. The rep system, launched in 2020, focuses on outcomes. Refs are trained to prioritize game flow and protect stars, not with blatant favoritism, but with subtle lean. It's easier to miss a foul on a bench guy than on someone Nike pays to sell jerseys. Referee culture leans the same way. In tight games, they swallow the whistle, but not always equally. When a star attacks the rim, refs wait to see if the shot goes in before making the call. Lesser known guys, they're already jogging back before the whistle's even a thought. Superstars get discretionary foul, the kind you don't see in box scores, but that show up in key moments. The theory says it's not random, it's systematic. Protect the stars, protect the show. And when the playoffs hit, it's even more obvious. More eyes, more ratings, more reasons to keep the best on the floor. The league doesn't need refs throwing games. It just needs them protecting the narrative. And in that story, the stars always shine. Greg Popovich was a CIA agent. That's the theory. It says Pop's military career wasn't just about discipline. It was a cover. After graduating in 1970, he joined the Air Force and went straight into intelligence work. Real intelligence, not carrying clipboards intelligence. He was trained in surveillance, missile tracking, and worked at a top-secret satellite facility in California. Then he was shipped to Turkey, where he monitored Soviet missile launches and helped run radar surveillance. All Cold War stuff, all spy adjacent. Oh, and he majored in Soviet studies, fluent in Russian, led a U.S. military basketball team through Eastern Europe in 1972 while being watched by the KGB. That's not normal coach backstory. That's Cold War passport stamp bingo. He's even admitted to all this, joking in interviews that he was an American spy in Russia. Former players and media personalities love to mention how covert he acts. Steve Nash once said, "Popovich seems like someone who knows things he shouldn't. That's not a vibe. That's a resume." The theory says all these puzzle pieces, his Cold War education, spy-tier job posts, CIA applications, and poker-face leadership add up to something more. Not a cover-up, just a different kind of legacy. The theory isn't that he's spying now, it's that he may have always been more than just a coach. He didn't just build global scouting networks. He moved like someone trained to collect intel and control outcomes. So yeah, the guy who ran US basketball and built the Spurs dynasty, according to the theory, he might have been doing both while moonlighting as a Cold War asset, Coach Pop or Agent Pop. Either way, the man plays the long game. The 2002 NBA draft lottery was rigged for Yao. The theory says the Rockets didn't just get lucky with the number 1 pick, they were handed it. In 2002, Houston had only an 8.9% chance to win the top spot, but somehow they jumped past teams like Chicago and Golden State to land it. And right there, waiting, was Yao Ming, the 7'5" international phenom from China. The Rockets had just lost Hakeem, their global centerpiece, and the league was watching one of its international success stories fade out. The theory says the NBA wanted another international giant in Houston, and Yao fit that storyline perfectly. His presence could spark global interest, especially from China's massive basketball fan base, and the Rockets already had a track record with international centers. People point to how perfectly the lottery aligned with the league's goals. They got a new foreign superstar. Houston got another international face of the franchise, and the league got a massive spike in overseas viewership. The theory sees that outcome as too clean to be random. Fans also note the long history of sketchy draft results. The Knicks in 1985, the Magic in 1993, and now the Rockets in 2002. All low odds wins, all involving franchises that would boost the league's image if they hit the jackpot. The Rockets walking away with Yao, with so much at stake for the league's expansion strategy, looks like a chess piece sliding into place. This theory says it wasn't luck, it was marketing, and the lottery did exactly what the league needed. James Harden was protected from PED scrutiny. That's the theory. It claims the NBA looked the other way, while Harden made dramatic physical changes, shredding fat, building muscle, and ramping up stamina in what some fans describe as an off-season body reboot. His transformation didn't go unnoticed. Photos and videos from team workouts showed a visibly leaner, stronger Harden, fueling rumors that something beyond diet and gym time was in play. Supporters of the theory point out that through Harden's peak in Houston, his workload was massive. He logged huge minutes, dominated the ball, and kept his energy late into game, all while rarely missing time. His durability and recovery were so consistent that fans began to wonder if it was more than just elite conditioning. Then there's the silence. No reports, no public testing results, no whispers of an investigation. The theory argues that Harden's superstar status and his value to both the Rockets and the league's marketing machine made him too big to probe. Why risk exposing one of the NBA's top draws? Better to let it slide. The NBA's history of protecting its stars doesn't help. There's never been a high-profile PED bust involving a player of Harden's caliber. And to the theory's believers, that's exactly the point. If Harden was enhanced in any way, the league had every reason to keep it under wraps. The evidence is circumstantial, before and after photos, performance trends, and total radio silence from the league. But for those watching closely, it's enough to suggest a pattern. According to this theory, Harden didn't just escape scrutiny, he was shielded because the NBA couldn't afford to lose the beard, the buckets, or the brand. Kawhi Leonard left the Spurs over sneaker politics. The theory says Kawhi's 2018 Spurs exit wasn't just about injuries, it was about Nike. Kawhi had been signed to Jordan Brand, but he wasn't playing the role they wanted. He wasn't flashy, didn't talk much, and refused to be a marketing puppet. While other stars made commercials and did press tours, Kawhi just played. Nike reportedly offered him a $5 million deal with no signature shoe. Kawhi's camp wanted more, so he closer to $10 million and full creative control. When Nike refused, things got tense. Spurs culture is already tight-lipped, but this added friction. According to the theory, the team didn't back Kawhi's push for more endorsement power. Instead, he got sidelined, literally and figuratively. His injury drama became the public cover, but behind the scenes, branding power plays were unfolding. Then came the shift. In November of that year, Kawhi signed with New Balance, a brand that hadn't touched basketball in decades. They gave him what Nike wouldn't: a signature shoe, creative freedom, and brand independence. The theory sees this as more than a sneaker deal. It was a rebellion. And the Spurs? They were seen as too tied to the old guard, too aligned with Nike's system. Kawhi's trade to Toronto wasn't just basketball. According to this theory, it was also a clean break from a marketing machine he didn't want to be part of. New Balance gave him control. The Raptors gave him freedom, and the Spurs and Nike got left behind. That's why believers say this wasn't just a trade, it was Kawhi rewriting the rules. The NBA ref travel scam, Operation Slam Dunk is what they called it. In 1994, the Internal Revenue Service uncovered that at least 43 NBA referees had been downgrading their league-issued first-class flights to coach, pocketing the fare difference and failing to report the extra income. This had been going on from 1989 through 1993. Between 35 and 45 refs were involved. The IRS forwarded 25 cases for civil audits, and 12 referees were indicted. The amounts pocketed ranged from $8,000 to $100,000 per ref. 11 of the 12 indicted pleaded guilty. Steve Javi went to trial and was acquitted. Ken Mauer was convicted, sentenced to house arrest and community service, and eventually returned to officiating. Hank Armstrong's case stood out. He admitted to pocketing over $160,000 from flight downgrades. Joey Crawford underreported more than $82,000 between 1991 and 1993, resigned, then rejoined the league in 1999. Mike Mathis understated about $69,000 and also served probation and community service. Even though no games were proven to be manipulated, the scandal shook public confidence. It didn't take a betting scandal to make fans wonder what else referees might be hiding. The NBA responded by tightening oversight, changing reimbursement processes, and attempting to rebuild trust. But the damage was done. Operation Slam Dunk remains the biggest officiating scandal in league history. It wasn't about who won or lost. It was about how much referees were willing to take while pretending it was just a plane ticket. The NBA knew about Sarver for years. They just didn't care until ESPN made them. That's the theory. Not that the league was clueless, but that it was willfully deaf until it became a PR disaster. Between 2004 and 2021, dozens of Phoenix Suns employees reportedly endured a workplace rife with racism, misogyny, and bullying, all linked to team owner Robert Sarver. ESPN talked to over 70 of them. Later, the league's own investigators reviewed over 80,000 documents and conducted over 320 interviews. But the NBA claimed it had never received a complaint. Sure, critics argue that's only technically true. Many employees reportedly didn't trust the NBA's hotline. Others feared retaliation. So while no formal complaints landed on Adam Silver's desk, the signs were there, just buried under years of passive neglect. That includes memos, internal warnings, and culture red flags that should have raised alarms long before ESPN's story dropped in November of 2021. Only after that expose did the NBA commission a real investigation. In September 2022, Sarver was suspended for 1 year and fined $10 million. But the league's damage control came way too late for those who worked under him for nearly 2 decades. The The theory isn't that the NBA didn't act, it's that it didn't act until it had no other choice. The Garnett trade was planned. The theory says Boston didn't just land Garnett out of nowhere, they timed it. People think the Celtics had the trade lined up with Minnesota before anyone knew. That whole deal, already done. But instead of dropping the news right away, they waited. First, they brought in Ray Allen during the draft. That got people thinking, oh cool, they're rebuilding. Then, a month later, Garnett gets announced like some surprise birthday gift. The idea was to make it look like a natural next step, not the start of a super team. Here's where it gets interesting. Danny Ainge and Kevin McHale had known each other forever. McHale ran the Timberwolves, and Ainge was calling the shots in Boston. People believe they were talking about this long before it all went public. That whole mega deal talk, reporters already had wind of it right after the draft. Fans point to the sequence as proof. The Ray Allen trade set the tone. It distracted everyone just enough. Then Garnett gets added, but it looks like he's the final piece instead of the headline. That pacing changed the vibe completely. It made the team look smart, not sneaky. Executives back then didn't love the whole super team thing, so dragging it out helped dodge backlash. This wasn't random. It was chess, not checkers. They planned the reveal like a slow burn. By the time Garnett showed up, it didn't feel forced. It felt earned. That's why the theory stuck around, because it actually makes too much sense. Tim Donnag was the scapegoat. The theory says Donnag wasn't just a rogue referee, he was the perfect distraction. In 2007, the NBA quickly painted him as the one bad apple. He admitted to betting on games he officiated, and the league moved fast to condemn him, distance themselves, and call it an isolated case. But that's exactly where the theory kicks in. People believe the NBA wanted it wrapped up clean. Donnag takes the heat, and nobody else gets touched. Here's why that idea keeps getting traction. First off, how does one referee gamble for years and nobody catches it? Critics say it's not just a blind spot, it's a whole system pretending not to notice. Donnag even talked about others being involved, but no other officials got charged, and nothing major came of those leads. That silence feels loud. Then there's the NBA's response. Sure, they made some tweaks to gambling rules for referees, but they didn't shake up hiring, training, or accountability. No league-wide review, no audit, just Donnag shoved into the spotlight. Some folks in the basketball world still whisper about shady ties and inconsistent calls. A few ex-officials have even hinted that there's more going on behind the scenes. And when Donnag's own lawyer mentioned he was influenced by outside people, that only added fuel. What really keeps this theory alive is the lack of big changes. Games still have calls that fans side-eye. And without a full investigation, the door is wide open. People think Donnag wasn't just caught, he was chosen, the fall guy. A neat ending to a messy story that maybe never really ended at all. The league blocked Zion from New York. The theory says the NBA didn't want Zion landing in a media circus, it wanted him safe. In 2019, the Knicks had the worst record in the league and the highest odds for the top pick. Fans were already photoshopping Zion into a Knicks jersey, but then the lottery happened, and New York somehow dropped to third. Meanwhile, the Pelicans, who had only a 6% chance, jumped straight to number one. That's when people started yelling, rigged. It didn't help that the Knicks were a complete disaster. They cycled through coaches, fired execs, and had zero direction. Zion going there would have meant daily press chaos and massive pressure. That's the exact environment the league might have wanted to avoid. The theory says Zion was too valuable to throw into a mess. Instead, they sent him to New Orleans, a smaller market, lower stakes, way more control. The theory also leans on history. The frozen envelope thing from the 80s never really went away. And when something this dramatic happens again, fans are quick to connect dots. People saw the same pattern. Once again, a huge star ends up somewhere unexpected, somewhere quieter. The reaction was instant. Analysts were stunned. Fans flooded message boards saying it looked shady. Even some former players thought the outcome felt off. Yes, the league says it's all audited and transparent. But when a prize star avoids the biggest market at the perfect moment, people talk. This theory sticks because the Knicks needed saving, and Zion was the guy to do it. But instead, the league chose safety, stability, predictability. They didn't gamble on New York. They played it safe with New Orleans, and fans haven't stopped questioning it since. If this theory is true, the funniest part is look where the Knicks ended up and look where the Pelicans ended up. Devok passed on Luca over his dad. The theory says Sacramento and Devok didn't pass on Luca because of fit or strategy. He did it because he couldn't stand Luca's dad. In 2018, Sacramento had the number 2 pick, and Luca was sitting right there. He was one of the top prospects in the world. But instead of grabbing the European phenom, the Kings took Marvin Bagley III. Not a terrible player, but compared to Luca, that pick aged like milk. Now here's where it gets messy. ESPN's Tim McMahon said on a podcast that Devok knew Sasha Doncic, Luca's father, and didn't think a whole lot of him. That's a polite way of saying Devok wasn't a fan. Reporters ran with that angle fast. Suddenly the story wasn't about basketball, it was personal. If you're from Europe and spent years around the game, the circles are small. Devok had played, scouted, and built connections in that world. And apparently, that history clouded his judgment. The claim spread like wildfire. Bleacher Report, NBC, even Barstool all echoed it. Devok later denied it, saying it was all about Fox's fit and what Bagley could bring. But Luca, he added fuel when he said should have drafted, and that came years later, after becoming one of the best players in the league. People buy into this theory because the logic feels off. You don't pass on a generational star without something weird going on. Add in insider whispers, media momentum, and Devok's tangled past with Sasha, and suddenly it's not so hard to believe. This wasn't just a draft miss. This might have been a grudge in disguise, and it changed 2 franchises forever. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.